Hey everybody. So I have been putting a lot of thought into what I want to have us do for the last couple of pieces of writing that we're going to create for our introspection and empathy portion of our philosophy project. And what I've done now is I've created kind of a sample for you. Partly because I want to share some things with you that I've been thinking about, and partly just to kind of model what it is that I'm hoping you'll do in this first reflection piece. I'll state this again in an assignment link, but basically what I'm going to have you do for this next piece of writing is an empathy and introspection, or an introspection and empathy, sorry, kind of pre-project self-assessment, the same way we did with imagination and escape, where I want you to really reflect on your own introspective life and kind of take the measure of your own sense of empathy. So how would you define introspection? How would you define empathy? How do these things play out in your life? And again, we've had some really great sharing around the imagination and escape. And so I'm hoping that this will spark some thoughts. And so I'm going to read you the thing that I wrote regarding this, because it kind of ties into what's going on now. And it's very, very up to the minute as far as what's been going on in my own head, in my own life, as I've been not just living my life, but thinking about this course, especially since we have been away from each other the past couple weeks. All right, so introspection and empathy. Some of this stuff you already know, but it kind of lays the groundwork. But anyway, I started journaling when I was 10 years old. I was already a naturally introspective person by that time, and journaling became an essential outlet for me. A tool by which to organize my thoughts, a private place to ask myself the questions I was afraid to ask the grown-ups around me. I entered graduate school in 2012 at the age of 41. I was studying for my MFA in nonfiction writing, and at that time, the graduation requirement was a 250-page or 50,000-word memoir. I will spare you the details, but what basically ensued was 2 solid years, the program was 24 consecutive months with no breaks between terms, of delving deep into myself. I had to discover myself as a protagonist and discern the arc of my own personal story. This meant identifying the antagonists in my life, those who had blocked my goals or caused me pain. It also meant identifying my own fatal flaws. It meant tracing the thorny path of my own growth and asking myself at the end, have I changed at all? It was hard, it got ugly, and it hurt. I limped out of the MFA program in 2014, battered from the experience, but with a diploma and a massive amount of self-knowledge that I had not had before. I wasn't always sure that was a good thing. There were days I wished I knew myself a little less completely. But I had also acquired something else along that journey. Empathy. I had always been a compassionate, sympathetic person, but now I was empathetic as well, and that was better. Having gotten to know myself more thoroughly and recognizing aspects of my life experience I had previously denied or ignored, and identifying aspects of my character I had previously been unaware of, I found myself able to relate to a far wider range of people. I could identify with more people's struggles. I felt less superior, less aloof, more connected. That, I realized, was worth the price of the pain that the introspection had caused me. Empathy was something to cherish and prize. I continued to keep journals relentlessly and religiously until January of 2020. I reached the end of my lavender faux leather soft-covered volume at the end of December, and I thought, you know what? I'm sick of thinking about myself all the time. I'm sick of wallowing around in my own head. I'm going to take a break from journaling and turn my gaze outward instead. I'm going to focus on others. It was a noble gesture, but it didn't work. It's almost the end of March. It's been 3 months since I've journaled, and you know what I've discovered? My empathy is waning. My emotional intunedness is weakening. I'm becoming numb. Ceasing from introspection has not made me less self-absorbed. Instead, it has made me less emotionally attuned. It has made me more task-oriented and less people-oriented, more intellectual and less heartfelt. By ceasing to journal, even as the world exploded with a pandemic and life has dramatically altered for myself and everyone else, I've been out of touch with my own emotional response to this crisis. It's been nice in a way not to think about my fears, not to let my mind wander to my children and how hard it is not to be living under one roof with them where I can take care of them and see to their needs, not to think about my parents, my mother with asthma, my 98-year-old grandma, and how much I love them and how much of a hole it would leave in my life to lose them. It feels good sometimes not to feel. However, by deafening myself to my own inner voice, by bucking up and turning outward and focusing on what I can do instead of what I am feeling, my senses have dulled to the suffering around me. I need to feel my own feelings in order to feel for others. I need to think my own thoughts out loud in order to understand and connect with what others are thinking. I need to turn inward in order to turn outward. I need to journal again. When I first titled this section of the course many months ago, when it was in its planning stages, I wasn't even sure how introspection and empathy would connect. I only felt sure that they would. Now, just as we have reached the point in our course where we will be focusing on these words, I feel I finally have the insight that I needed. The connection is blatantly clear. Introspection is one sure way to grow in empathy, but it's not the only way. As we proceed, you'll be reading some articles or listening to some TED Talks on how reading fiction, particularly literary fiction, also increases our empathy. I believe we have come to the most important moment in our course. This is where we have the opportunity to walk away with something life-changing. Just when the world needs it most, we're going to grow in our empathy. More guidance will follow regarding how I want you to write this up, but in the meantime, start thinking about how to beef up the introspection in your life. We talked during the first half about imagination and escape, and these are great coping mechanisms, great tools for dealing with life. Introspection is almost the opposite, though. It's facing the reality head on and reflecting on it, feeling life and thinking about life instead of taking an imaginative break from it. So as we get ready to move into this part of our project, start thinking about your own thoughts. Consider keeping a journal or writing poetry that reflects what you're feeling, or writing a story in which you know the character is you. These aren't assignments for this class, but they're ideas that you can use to get your introspective gears turning. Also, take your own empathetic temperature. Notice how attuned you are to the feelings and experiences of others. How easily can you put yourself in someone else's shoes? The first thing I'm going to ask you to do is write something like this, a self-assessment of your own introspective habits, and take a measure of your own empathetic side. So it's going to be like a pre-project self-assessment, a reflection, just kind of musing on these two words and on what they mean to you, on ways in which they do or do not play into your everyday life and experience. I'm going to be creating two things. One is going to be an assignment link that will be graded. The assignment link is where you will upload this for me to read, and I will give you a grade for completing it. And then the second thing that I'm going to create is optional, and that is a discussion thread where you can post it for your classmates to read. So if you want to share it with each other, you can post it to the discussion, but in either case, you will also post it to the assignment for grading. I'll give you a couple weeks to work on this. I am also going to be scheduling a couple of live Zoom meetings for us so that we can, those of us who are able, will be able to log in at the same time and just kind of, touch bases with each other. So once these are completed in a few weeks at one of those meetings, if you want to read yours, so if you want to save it and not post it to discussions and you want to save it to read in the Zoom meeting, to your classmates, we can do it that way as well. So trying to just kind of create, some multiple ways that we can kind of stay connected and keep sharing things with each other. But anyway, I look forward to reading your reflections when they come in. I'm going to be posting some other instructions and just kind of clearing up, updating the course calendar, the syllabus and stuff, everything, of course, has completely changed from the way the course schedule looked originally now that we don't have our class time. So I'm going to be posting an updated version of all that stuff. But anyway, I don't need to tell you about that in this video. So anyway, I look forward to reading what you write, and take care of yourselves, guys.